Now, Celtic may have been crowned 9 in a row title winners almost 2 weeks ago, but we're still basking in the glory of it on 67 Hail Hail on YouTube, and we've got another cracker of a video for you today. Now, 9 years is a long time to dominate in any sport. I was only 15 years old when the title winning started. I'm now nearly 24. I've seen Celtic win titles by 30 odd points, some slimmer margins, although never too slim. I've seen us go seasons unbeaten and lose only one game in other seasons. It's been dramatic at times, it's been tough at times, but Celtic have always kept winning. Now, in total, we've played 334 games over the past 9 seasons, winning 251 of them, drawing 51 and losing 32. Those 334 games have seen us concede 218 times, while we've scored a whopping round number of 800. The first of those was scored by Anthony Stokes in just the 14th minute of the first game of our run away to Hibs at Easter Road, while the most recent of those came in the last minute Celtic played by Callum McGregor, a penalty against St Mirren in the last game before football was stopped for the coronavirus pandemic. But what about everything that came in between? Well, that is the topic of today's video on the 67 Hail Hail channel, as we look back and pick out our favourite game from every season of our 9 in a row win. Now, some seasons have a plethora of games to choose from, whereas other ones are a bit more slim pickings, but I suppose that will make our journey a little bit more enjoyable. Let's get into it then. Now, there's a certain irony in us winning our first title at Rugby Park. Not only was it a ground where we'd already endured title despair on the final day and also title euphoria. Think back to Nakamura's goal a few years prior to this success, but it was a ground that had seen our rivals win the title the previous season, a season that we should really have won the league. Neil Lennon's first full one in charge. If we hadn't have bottled it away to Inverness Cali Thistle on that Wednesday summer evening, then we would have already won 10 in a row. But Killie were an ideal opponent for us as well. The previous time we visited Rugby Park that season, we'd gone 3-0 down in the first half to the Ayrshire side, only to battle back. Think back to Anthony Stokes and James Forrest roles in our comeback in a game that arguably turned it around for Neil Lennon at Celtic. We'd also played Kilmarnock in the final of the League Cup just the month previous to this game at Hampden Park. They stunned us, they won 1-0. Not saying any more about that game because it still probably hurts a lot of people at Celtic. But this match on Easter Saturday put to bed some of the ill feeling from that one as we put the Ayrshire side to the sword, winning 6-0 with Charlie Mulgrew starring. He scored the first goal, then Glenn Louvens added a header, then Mulgrew scored the second before Gary Hooper netted. We're 4-0 up before half time. Went a wee bit quiet in the second half, and then we finished with a flurry with 2 goals, an iconic Joe Ledley chip and then another goal from Gary Hooper, rounded off a 6-0 triumph in front of round about 15,000 Celtic supporters, taking up 3/4 of the stadium at Rugby Park as we secured our first league title in 3 years. It was a really memorable day. I was there myself, lucky enough to get a ticket, and the atmosphere still lingers with me to this day. A brilliant performance and our pick from season 2011-2012. Now, the following season didn't see us have too many happy memories in the league, at least. This was, of course, the season when we shocked loads of people to reach the last 16 of the Champions League. But while we had countless great nights in Europe against Barcelona, Spartak Moscow, etc., we didn't have quite as many in the league, although this game against Aberdeen is a notable exception. People think of the late drama in this game, and we'll come on to that in a wee second, but they also forget that we were ahead with one of the earliest goals probably ever scored in a Celtic match. It took just 13 seconds for Chris Commons to score the opener against Aberdeen, but then it went a little bit pear-shaped as the Dons equalised, went 2-1 up and then went 3-1 up at Celtic Park. The support thought it was just going to be another one of those days, and a disappointing league season that had already seen us lose to the likes of St Johnstone and Kilmarnock at home. But it wasn't to be as we came back. Mulgrew scored, then Hooper got the equaliser, and then in the 94th minute, a famous Georgios Samaras overhead kick, a brilliant goal, saw us secure a monumental victory over Aberdeen. Of course, it wasn't monumental in the fact that it won us the league or anything, because we still cantered to the title that year, but the fact it came against a team who would be our closest challengers for around about the next 7 or 8 seasons was pretty symbolic. Going 3-1 down to come back to win 4-3 against Aberdeen was pretty sensational. Season 2013-2014 was a bit better in the league. It was Neil Lennon's final campaign of his first term as manager. We lost just 1 game. The season is best remembered probably for the remarkable run we had of clean sheets. Fraser Forster, of course, in goals taking much of the credit for that. It was 13 straight league matches that he didn't lose a goal for. However, our selection that we're choosing focuses more on the guys at the other end of the pitch who were scoring the goals as we sealed 3 in a row against our Glasgow rivals, Partick Thistle. Now, this midweek game at Firhill saw us score 5. We conceded once, but it was the goals, 2 from Anthony Stokes, 1 famous one from Liam Henderson. Loved that goal. I think it was even his first for the club, as well as strikes from Stefan Johansson, obviously, and Chris Commons as well. So us win 5-1. Winning the league title is always going to be great. It's nice to do it at Celtic Park, but sometimes the atmosphere is better when you do it on the road, and when you do it in a midweek match with so many Celtic fans against your Glasgow rivals, it feels extra special. That's our nomination for season 2013-2014. Into the Ronnie Dyler reign and another last gasp victory over Aberdeen. The difference being that this one came at Pittodrie. We all remember the famous Virgil van Dijk last minute goal as he swept in a corner to seal victory against the Dons. What made this victory that put us to the top of the league even more special was that we did it with 10 men. Scott Brown may only have been sent off 10 minutes from time, but we still came back from 10 men to win the match. We were 1-0 down early on through Adam Rooney before Stefan Johansson levelled matters. Then Brown gets sent off near the end, but we still, rather than holding on for a draw, went to win the match. Virgil van Dijk scored late on. To make matters even better, Shea Logan was sent off after full time. Not the first time that would happen against us either. And the Ronnie roar was arguably born. That's when many folk look at the first time that really happened as he roared over to the Celtic supporters, although he had done it earlier on in the season at Dens Park. Although this game was massive, it took us to the top of the league against a team that were starting to challenge us a little bit too much for many in Celtic Park's liking, but this was a really good victory. Now, this may be a controversial choice from the 2015-2016 season. Most people looking back at this campaign may look at the famous win at Kilmarnock when Tom Rogic scored that last-minute screamer as the favourite game. However, the truth is that that match was pretty forgettable, and if we hadn't have scored that goal through Rogic, it would probably be in one of the lowest matches of the season. So I've tried to pick a match that is a match rather than just a moment, and I've gone for this 3-1 win over Hearts. A few reasons for that. I always remember the crowd being really good at Celtic Park that day. I think Hearts were our main, rivals in the league at that stage with no Rangers in the league. So I remember the atmosphere had been really full and a good atmosphere, and we went behind early on against a good Hearts side under Robbie Neilson, but came back to win 3-1. Gary Mackay-Steven equalising before the birth of Paddy Roberts. His first goal for Celtic and his first goal in professional football. Saw him dink the keeper before he added another goal just after half-time to make it 3-1. Really good game this. Of course, it doesn't quite go to compete against anything in the last couple of seasons against Hearts or any other team, but it was still a good victory at the time and one that will be remembered fondly. Into the Brendan Rodgers regime, and we're talking invincible season. Now, I must admit, I couldn't choose between the 2 5-1s against Rangers, the home one, and the away ones, so I've decided to put neither in because I felt it was slightly unfair, although there's maybe even an argument that I would have selected this win at Fir Park anyway, just because of the dramatic nature. It's sometimes better winning a game in the last kick rather than absolutely thumping a team. Sometimes you get more satisfaction out of it. This game, just prior to Christmas, I think it was early December, it was only our 13th league match of the season, but it was the biggest threat that our invincible season would come under, and it was arguably the result that told this Celtic team and the rest of the league that no one was going to stop us. We were 2-0 down relatively early on at Fir Park. We then brought it back before going 3-2 behind, before coming back dramatically to win the game 4-3. It was Tom Rogic again. Last kick of the match, he made a bit of a habit of doing that for a few years at the club, and this was a really sensational victory in front of a really sizable Celtic support in Lanarkshire. This is a game, again, I was there, that springs out very highly on the list. Now, I mentioned the two 5-1 wins against Rangers, but the following season, in a little bit more of an underwhelming season for Brendan Rodgers' Celtic, we even bettered those 5-1s by beating Rangers 5-0, not just to take 3 points, but to clinch another league title, our 7th in a row. This was arguably the crowning of Odsonne Edouard, as he scored 2 goals before an amazing solo goal from homegrown hero James Forrest sent Celtic Park into euphoria. We added 2 more early on in the second half through Tom Rogic and Callum McGregor, and perhaps the only criticism of this game is that we didn't rack up a cricket score 7 or 8, but maybe then I'm being a little bit greedy. This game does, for me, just beat the 3-2 success at Ibrox a month or so earlier, although you could argue that that game was very different, but it gave us the same sort of euphoria. It depends what you like. Again, you may prefer the 3-2 win at Ibrox. I'm going for the 5-0 win against Rangers at Celtic Park, just because it was such a thumping, because we put them in their place, and because we won the league title, and you can't say that that's happened very often against them. And when you're thinking of the Rodgers-Lennon hybrid season, if you want to call it that, this game at Tynecastle just springs out. The game itself probably isn't the main reason, it's what happened prior to it. Just a day or so before, Brendan Rodgers walked out on us to go to Leicester City. He took a few of his members of his backroom staff as well. We all know the story there, I won't go into it all again. But what happened after that was a brilliant effort from Celtic and from Neil Lennon, who had barely met each other, the Celtic first team squad under Rodgers and Lennon, and they came together to go to one of the toughest venues we visit on any season and win in dramatic circumstance at Tynecastle. James Forrest scored the first goal of Lennon's second reign before Hearts brought it back, and then Odsonne Edouard struck with virtually the last kick of the game to send the stand of Celtic supporters in Gorgie into absolute euphoria. It was a tremendous victory, and one that arguably set the tone for Lennon's second term as Celtic boss. To make it even better, it was at the home of one of our biggest rivals in the league, a team that had already beaten us there already this season. Neil Lennon's Celtic seemed to revel in being written off. They were written off before that aforementioned Hearts game, but also even more so probably for the early September meeting that's our choice for this season or last season, whatever way you want to frame it, against Rangers at Ibrox. Now, Rangers hadn't done a great deal at this stage. We were still winning all the trophies, but I think our exit to Cluj in the Champions League and even our underwhelming performance against Dunfermline in the League Cup had, brought about talk that there was crisis at Celtic Park, that Lennon had lost the dressing room, that he wasn't the same as the manager that had managed us previously. However, he put all that to bed, and so did his players, as we put in a wonderful performance at Ibrox to stop our rivals playing and score 2 goals. First of all from Odsonne Edouard, and then that excellent clincher from Johnny Hayes late on. It was a day when we put our rivals in their place and they arguably didn't get up at all for the rest of the season. That's our choice for the most recent season.